For the past 2 months, none of us have been able to go to gyms, visit restaurants, or hang out with friends outside of video calls. And I, probably like a lot of people, have been getting pretty bored with it. So I've decided to see what it would take for me to start a business. Now, this isn't the first time that I've considered starting my own business. It's always been kind of an idea in the back of my head. The issue is, in the past, I kind of always thought you had to be someone like Bill Gates or Steve Jobs or Mark Zuckerberg. You had to have this stroke of brilliance from the sky which came in and told you, this is what you need to do. That idea that you had to have kind of a stroke of brilliance to start your own company all changed when, of all things, I listened to a podcast. That podcast was called Startup, and it was hosted by a former This American Life podcaster by the name of Alex Bloomberg. During that podcast, Alex basically went through the entire process of starting his own company, a podcasting company, from scratch. He went out and talked to investors. He found a partner to bring on board. He came up with the name for the company. And eventually, spoiler alert, he ended up selling that company to Spotify. That whole process he documented and showed every step of the way, the nitty-gritty details, and that was incredibly interesting to me. And it also, aside from showing me kind of the process that he went through, made me realize maybe you don't need a stroke of brilliance to start your own company. You just have to go ahead and start it. And then many strokes of brilliance will accompany you somewhere along the way. At least I hope so. That was all a couple months ago, so I started to brainstorm ideas. What if we build an app for all those times you have to call into customer service, and instead of having all those options like press 1 to change your password, press 2 to update your address, press 3 to talk to customer service, instead you could have like a website where the user could just click the different buttons while talking with someone from customer service? What if we build an app where bars could hook it up to their TVs when they were having some kind of live musician? Then you could donate in order to request certain songs, kind of like a jukebox, but for live music. What if we built something which you could stick on top of your light switch and then would connect to Wi-Fi, and then you could turn your light switch on and off using your phone? I mean, yeah, you could just buy like smart light bulbs or something, but notice that a lot of those ideas are pretty tech heavy, and there's a reason for that. My background is in engineering, and a lot of the work I do in my day job is programming. But the ideas kept coming, and yet none of them really seemed to click. I kept thinking about why none of these ideas seemed like something I could actually do in real life. And I realized the reason is none of them let me start small. All of them required either a big upfront investment in money or time, neither of which I really had a lot of, being someone who just works a normal day job. So I thought about what would have to be true for me to actually move forward with doing something. I came up with a pretty simple list. It had to be something that required a small upfront investment to get started. It had to be something that I could do on the side, and it had to be something that had enough room to grow where it would feel worthwhile doing. Some of the ideas that came to mind were real estate. Well, the obvious problem with real estate is you have to have at least some money to get started, which I didn't have. The next idea I came up with was drop shipping. Now, drop shipping is basically where you order something from some third party where it's really cheap, and then you sell it to someone else for a higher price. The issue with this, in my opinion, is it doesn't seem like something that really adds a lot of value to people. It's more just taking advantage of geographical differences and having good marketing to kind of push products onto people, which is fine for some people, but it wasn't something I was really interested in. So the final idea I came up with was some kind of digital product or an app. The biggest problem with building an app is apps can be kind of hard to build. Now, there are kind of two categories of apps. On one end, you have apps that tend to be outsourced, and these tend to be built by developers in India or the Philippines after being designed by maybe somebody in the US. And then on the far other end of the scale, you have apps built in Silicon Valley. These are like Uber and Instagram and have tons of features and are really expensive to build. The problem is, I can't compete on price or efficiency with those outsourced apps that are really quick to build. And on the other hand, I can't compete with the quality and number of features that can be supported by these huge developer teams in Silicon Valley. But maybe I could compete somewhere in the middle. I started looking through the Google Play Store to try to find a category of apps where the top apps got a lot of users but didn't seem overly complicated and weren't that well built or designed. Eventually, I settled on a category: vocabulary flashcard apps. The reason I settled on this category was it met the criteria I listed earlier. There were a lot of users for these apps, the apps seemed pretty easy to build, and the existing designs just weren't very good. On top of this, I figured if I could build one vocab flashcard app for, say, biology, it'd be really easy to then go in, reskin that app, change the vocab words, and sell another app, maybe for physics. That would make it easy for me to scale as just an individual who doesn't have that much time or resources, while still building a really quality product. So let's see if it met all the criteria on my checklist. Is it low investment? Well, debatably so. It'll definitely take a little bit of time for me to build the app, but it won't really cost me any money, and it won't take nearly as much time as a lot of the other apps that I had thought of in the past. Is it something I can do on the side? Well, this kind of ties in with the first point. As long as the app doesn't take too long to build, it should be something that I can do on nights and weekends without affecting any of the work that I do during the day. And finally, room to grow. The nice thing about the vocab flashcards is it can kind of grow in two different stages. The first would be through just scaling out different kinds of vocab apps, maybe one for a specific test or one for a specific category. But then beyond that, you could imagine tying these apps into other services related to education, maybe with sample tests or online tutors. So there's definitely room to scale this if I later had a big enough team. Outside of actually building the app, doing this would teach me some really valuable lessons, like how to monetize something online through advertising. I know absolutely nothing about this process right now. Like, how do you get ads into your app? How do you get paid for those ads? Do they send you a check? Do they Venmo me? I mean, all these things I just have no idea about. What about SEO, search engine optimization? I know that that's a thing that exists, but I don't know what it is, and I don't know if I need to be doing it. How do you actually upload an app to the App Store? Is there an approval process I have to go through? All of these different things are things that I've always been kind of curious to know. And instead of just looking them up online, I figured, why not do them myself? I think that outside of actually building a business, I think a really important part of this whole process is just learning what it's like to build a business, and then hopefully showing that to other people, which is where you come in. Even if building a business didn't work out, I think going through the process is really interesting, at least to me, and I think it might be valuable to other people too. I'm going to build a business, and I'm going to show you everything along the way. So here we go. Let's build an app. Thanks so much for watching. I'm really excited to get started on this journey, and I hope you are too. If you want to follow along, make sure to hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell so that you're notified when I release my next video. I'll see you later.